outcomes.
Substantive comments that I want to make on the education amendment, but I do have a quick question for the Minister. I'd like her to name one school board of trustees that isn't focused on student achievement.
That's right.
Which one? Which one? All right, here we go. So there we go. The Minister of Education cannot name one school board of trustees that isn't focused on student achievement, because the reality is when parents put their names forward to be on school boards of trustees, they do so specifically because they care about their kids' educational achievement and because they care about the educational achievement of other kids within their community. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful that this government don't acknowledge that and that they seem to think they have to legislate for something that's blatantly obvious. Blatantly obvious, because parents and teachers and everyone that works in the education system goes into it with the view of improving the lives of young people in New Zealand. They already want to do that. They don't need to have the government come in here and accuse them of not doing that, which is what Hikia Parata is constantly doing all of the time. Mr. Speaker, this is a sad day for the public education system in New Zealand. That is a very sad day because it's a day when the National Party put politics before education. So when did this all start? We know how this bill came to be in the House. It was all to do with the cup of tea between Mr. Banks over there and John Key, the one which was inadvertently recorded, that they went to court to try and cover up the cup of tea between John Banks and John Key. That's why we're debating this legislation in the House today. It's not about education. It's not about what's going to be good for education. It is riding roughshod over public opinion, which is something that we are well used to this national government doing. 82% of New Zealanders are opposed to the idea that the charter schools should be allowed to employ unregistered teachers. And yet this government are bringing this bill to the House to deregulate the teaching profession effectively, to ignore the public's concern about that matter, and they voted down an amendment that I put forward that would have ensured that there were qualified registered teachers in schools. 71% of the New Zealand public are opposed to the idea that a charter school operator should be able to make a profit, because New Zealanders know that money taken out of charter schools and profits is not money. Specious numbers, Hikia Parata says. I think it was a One News poll. Oh, they don't make up stuff. They don't make up stuff like the opposition does. Oh, well, look, I'm sure this is going to get better. 71% of New Zealanders opposed to charter schools making a profit because they know that money that's sucked out of the education system in the form of profits is not money that's going into educating kids. And why should the taxpayer be lining the back pockets of the National Party and the ACT Party's mates who want to set up their charter schools rather than putting that money into education? Because this government, they're putting $19 million into these charter schools. In the very same budget, they cut the funding for a program like Te Kotahitanga, a program that has a proven track record of lifting student achievement, has been cut by this government. How much, Hikia Parata says it's rubbish, how much money is going into Kotahitanga next year?
Building on success and actually...
No, that's right. There would be no money going into Kotahitanga next year. No money at all going into Kotahitanga next year. Not 1 cent, because the government have cut the funding for it because they've decided that charter schools are more important. Charter schools, which international evidence proves don't actually work. Let's look at the United States, which the government seem to be so in love with the charter school system in the US. Stanford University did research into charter schools and found for 37% of learners, they produce significantly worse outcomes. For 37%. For 46%, that made no difference at all. And only 17% did better in charter schools. These are the sorts of numbers that the government think justify their experiment in charter schools in New Zealand. This is not an experiment that's designed to improve the outcomes in education. This is an ideological experiment that is designed to privatise aspects of the education system, when what we should be focused on is ensuring that every school in New Zealand is a great school and every New Zealander has the opportunity to fulfil their full potential through the access to lifelong learning opportunities and a quality public education system. and a quality public education system. More Māori. Hiki Parata talks about, she has got the audacity to talk about Māori educational achievement when that minister cut the funding for the best Māori education program in the country. Cut the funding completely. It is gone. It is completely gone from next year, and Hiki Parata is talking about Māori educational achievement when actually she has been the minister that has cut the one program that had outstanding results. Why? Because it was too expensive. And what's her excuse? Oh, well, we're going to come up with something that's a lot cheaper. She's decided that it's going to be cheaper to cut corners and cut the program that works. That's how much Hiki Parata cares about Māori students' educational achievement. She wants to cut the one program that actually works. And Hiki Parata wants to put unregistered, unqualified teachers in front of these Māori students. They're not going to have to learn the New Zealand curriculum. They're not going to have to learn the New Zealand curriculum. And these schools, if Hiki Parata is so confident that they are going to be such good quality schools, why aren't they going to be subject to the Official Information Act? Nothing. Deathly silence. Nothing. Because the government don't want the public to know what goes on within these charter schools. If the government is so confident that these charter schools are going to act in a manner that is totally appropriate, why is it that the Ombudsman's powers don't apply to the entirety of this charter school's operations? Another deathly silence from the government. No answer to that question. Because we know that the Ombudsman's powers in regard to the state school system have been used judiciously and have highlighted major systemic problems, which including systemic bullying in one particular school, which the education agencies didn't pick up. And this is the sort of stuff that the government want to hide in charter schools by making them not subject to the Official Information Act, not allowing the Ombudsman the power to investigate. In short, they want to shortcut the democratic process. They want to hide what's going on in these schools. These charter schools, the government talk about the priority learners. Well, here's another question for the Minister. Name one learner that's not a priority learner.
All of them are priorities, but that opposition...
Oh, all of them are priorities. So when the government talk about their priority learners, what on earth is the point? Because they should all be priority learners. So it's absolute weasel words when the government talk about priority learners. What is it that Hiki Parata has against parent-led board of trustees? What is it that Hiki Parata's got against parent-led board of trustees when she wants to allow private charter schools to be set up as profit-making businesses with no parental involvement in how they're run whatsoever? Because that is what this legislation allows, plain and simple. This is a failed ideological experiment that's being imported from overseas. It's not about improving educational outcomes for New Zealand students. It's not about making sure we pick up the best examples of what is working in this country, what is good for New Zealand students. It's not about that at all. It's about importing failed ideology. It's about the failed ideology that says that if we increase competition, we'll get better outcomes. Well, actually, we've had several decades of increased competition in our education system, and the very priority learners that Hiki Parata talks about are some of those who have been most disadvantaged by that competition that we have within our education system. Oh, no, actually, it was the Labour government that set up the Te Koe Tanga program that minister has now cut the funding to. It was the Labour government that established schools of special character to recognise that there is a gap within the existing public education system, and schools of special character already allow that gap to be filled. And yet this government are turning their backs on that, saying that they don't think schools of special character are any use at all. They are turning their backs on that, and they're saying that they want to privatise education and deregulate the teaching profession instead. And deregulate the teaching profession they will, because we saw from the Novapay inquiry today the veiled references to further deregulation, to renegotiating the collective agreement to make them simpler. Oh yes, that's the agenda. We know Treasury's been working on it. They're going to use any excuse they can to deregulate the teaching profession in New Zealand, because the National Party never learn the lessons of history. When we look at the countless examples of where deregulation of professions has gone wrong, then we don't need another one. The future of New Zealand's education system, the future of the young people in it, are far too important to experiment on, which is what this bill does.
Mr. Speaker.
The Doctor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The Education Amendment Bill amends the Education